Have you ever stood in a car park before an appointment, rehearsing what you're going to say, running the sentences, trying to get them right, and then walked into the room and watched your brain go completely blank? The words were there, and then they weren't. Today, we're talking about hard rooms, what actually happens to you inside them, why your brain does what it does, and what you can do to walk in more prepared and walk out with fewer regrets. This is a bonus episode, and it exists because something is coming that I think could genuinely change how you show up in those rooms. Stay with me. If you're tired of holding it together in hard rooms, appointments, hospital days, and service systems, and then crashing afterwards, you're in the right place. Hi, lovely. Caregiver to caregiver, I'm really glad you're here. I'm Michelle. As a caregiver and advocate, I know firsthand what it's like to become the walking medical encyclopedia, to fight for continuity so you don't have to repeat your story, and to leave the room thinking, I should have said that differently. No pressure, no perfect routines, and no toxic positivity. Just one gentle reset and one practical next step so you can have calmer days, clearer words, and advocate without self-abandoning. Before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know about something happening this Thursday, August 13th. It's called the Hard Room Words Kit, a live 60-minute workshop where we build your personal kit together in real time. Anchor phrases, grounding scripts, a prep note, tools you keep and use in every hard room from here. It's $49 and there's a 14-day replay. Link is in the show notes, and I'll tell you more at the end. Before we begin, let's take a deep breath and settle. I want to start with a moment I think you'll recognize. You've been preparing for this appointment for days, maybe longer. You've written the notes, you've researched, you know what you need to say. You've run through the sentences in the car park or in the shower or at 2 a.m. when your brain wouldn't stop rehearsing. And then you walk in. And something shifts. Maybe it's the tone of the room, that clinical efficiency that tells you quietly that your time is limited and your job is to compress everything important into 10 to 15 minutes. And maybe it's the way the doctor looks at the screen before they look at you. Maybe it's the way a word gets used, something like non-compliant or anxious parent, or there's nothing more we can do right now, and your whole body tightens in a way you can't explain and you can't undo. And the words you had, the sentences you rehearsed, the question you knew you needed to ask, they're just gone. Like someone turned the lights off in that part of your brain. You're nodding. You're saying yes. You're not disagreeing, even though some part of you knows you should be. And then you walk out. And by the time you get to the car, it starts. What just happened? Why didn't I say that? I had it. I knew what I needed to say. Why did I just go along with it? And then the replay begins. I want you to know something before we go any further. What happened in that room was not a failure of intelligence or preparation or courage. It was your nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. And once you understand that, everything changes. All right, let's make this make sense. What actually happens to you in a hard room? A hard room is any high-stakes environment where you need to advocate clearly, think quickly, and communicate under pressure while managing your own fear, your loved one's needs, and a system that wasn't designed with caregivers in mind. And here's what's important. Your body reads that environment as a threat. Not because you're fragile, not because you're anxious in a way that needs fixing, but because the stakes are real, the power dynamic is real, and your nervous system is doing its job, which is to protect you. When your body goes into protection mode, it narrows your focus. It prioritizes the most immediate information. It pulls blood and resources towards survival function and away from the part of your brain responsible for language, nuance, and complex communication. So, when you say my brain went blank, that's not a metaphor. That is a literal description of what happened neurologically. Your access to language was reduced, not because you're not smart enough, not because you didn't prepare enough, but because your body was trying to keep you safe in a room it reads as dangerous. And for caregivers, this is compounded by something really specific. You are almost never walking into one hard room. You're walking into a hard room on top of the last hard room, on top of every hard room before that. The cumulative weight of chronic advocacy, the appointments, the referrals, the phone calls, the forms, the being dismissed, the having to repeat your story again, that doesn't reset between rooms. So your nervous system is already carrying load before you even open the door. That blank, that freeze, that I should have said something, that is not a personal failure. That is a psychological response to a high load environment, and it can be worked with. Now let's talk about why preparation alone doesn't fix it. Here's the thing that might surprise you. You can prepare perfectly and still freeze. Because the problem is a hard room is not usually an information gap. You know your child's history. You know your loved one's needs. You have the notes. You've done the research. The problem is access. When your nervous system goes into protection mode, it doesn't just affect your words. It affects your ability to retrieve information, to sequence your thoughts, to read the room and respond in real time, and to hold your ground when you're being challenged or dismissed or rushed. Preparation lives in one part of your brain. Protection mode lives in another. And in a hard room, protection mode can temporarily override your access to everything you've prepared. This is why most standard advice for hard rooms misses the point. Write a list, yes, and you still might not be able to read it when you're in the room. Ask questions, yes, and your brain might go blank the moment someone answers in a way you didn't expect. What actually works is preparing your nervous system, not just your notes. When you have tools that work with your body, that help you stay regulated enough to access language, to hold your ground, to come back to yourself when the room shifts, that's when preparation pays off. That's when you walk out knowing you said what mattered. Let's talk about what words back actually means. I want to paint a picture of what it looks like when you have this. It doesn't look like a perfect appointment. It doesn't look like no fear, no shaking, no uncertainty. It looks like your hands are a little steadier and you still ask the question. It looks like the doctor uses a word that tightens your chest, and instead of going silent, you have a phrase, a short, simple anchor phrase that buys you 10 seconds of breathing room. Can I just take a note of that? Can you say that again so I have it right? I want to understand what that means for us. 10 seconds. That's enough for your brain to come back online. It looks like you're in the room and something unexpected happens. The plan changes or the referral gets denied, and you get an answer you weren't prepared for. And instead of spiraling or shutting down, you have a grounding script. Something small and physical that signals your nervous system, I'm okay. I can think. I can take the next step. It looks like you walk out and you sit in the car, and instead of the spiral, what did I miss? What should I have said? What happens now? You have a next right step already written. One sentence, one action. Your brain doesn't have to hold it alone overnight. That's what words back looks like. Not perfect advocacy, present advocacy. Words that are yours in the moment, in the rooms that cost you the most. I want to dive into why this matters more than you might let yourself believe. I want to say something here that I think needs to be said. Caregivers are often the last person in the room whose needs get considered, including their own capacity to advocate as well. The system assumes you'll manage. It assumes you can hold the complexity, absorb the information, push back when needed, and do it all while managing your own fear and your own loved one's fear at the same time. And most of the time, you do. Because you simply have to. But I managed and I have everything I needed to advocate well are not the same thing. You deserve to walk into those rooms with more than notes. You deserve to walk in with tools that work with your nervous system, tools you've actually built and practiced, not just read about. Because when you advocate more effectively, Your loved one gets better continuity of care. The gaps close, the assumptions get challenged. The next right step gets named and documented and followed up. This isn't just about you feeling better in the room. This is about outcomes for the person you love. Before we get to what's coming, just a small pause. If it helps, drop your shoulders right now. Breathe in and out with a longer exhale, and feel your feet flat on the floor, pushing your toes in and out. And just notice, you're here, you're learning, you're doing the right thing that most caregivers don't do, which is look after your own capacity so you can keep showing up. That counts. It really does. Okay, I want to tell you about what's happening on Thursday, August 13th, because this episode exists specifically to set it up. It's called the Hard Room Words Kit, and it's a live 60-minute workshop where you build your own personal kit. Not a template, not a generic script, your kit, built live with me in real time. Here's what we're building together. Your anchor phrases, short, simple phrases you can use in the room to buy yourself time and to regulate your nervous system without anyone in the room knowing that's what you're doing. Your grounding scripts, body-based, simple and fast, for when the room shifts and you need to come back to yourself quickly. Your prep note, a structured, practical document you complete before each hard room, so your brain doesn't have to hold everything at once. And your post-room reset, so the appointment ends when you leave the car park and not at 2 a.m. This is for caregivers who are in the early to middle years of their advocacy journey, years 0 to 10, the ones who are still learning the language, still figuring out how to hold their ground, still leaving appointments wishing they'd said something differently. The workshop is live on Thursday, August 13th, and there's a 14-day replay access, so if life does what life does, you won't miss it. The link is in the show notes, and registration takes about 2 minutes. If you've ever stood in a car park and thought, I should have said that differently, this is built for that moment. Come and build the kit that changes it. I would genuinely love to see you there. All right, lovely. Let's wrap this one gently. Hard rooms cost you something, not because you're doing it wrong, but because your nervous system is doing its job in an environment with real stakes and real pressure. The blank, the freeze, the replay, they're not failure. That's psychology, that's physiology, and it can be worked with. What changes things is not more preparation in the traditional sense. It's preparing your nervous system, having tools that work with your body in real time, in the room itself. And that is exactly what we're building on Thursday. If this episode landed for you, share it with a caregiver who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to build your kit, the link is in the show notes. I'll see you Thursday. Hey lovely, caregiver to caregiver, if today's episode supported you even in a small way, would you share it with another caregiver who's holding it together in hard rooms too? And if you have a quick moment, leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify really helps us reach more caregivers who need calmer days, clearer words, and practical support. I'll see you right back here next time for another episode. I'm Michelle, and this is Nervous System Reset for Caregivers. No pressure, no perfect routines, and no toxic positivity. Just one gentle reset and one practical next step. Until next time, take gentle care of your radiant moments and of yourself.